So I decided to talk about this separately from the championship recap because I do believe in the champion getting his flowers. And he will get his flowers. But you guys have to understand something. Somebody has to stand on their square. Someone has to have some conviction here and not give a fuck that the championship was just won. Yes, exactly. It was a high-stakes situation and something went wrong. Eric won. Congratulations to Eric. I don't know what you guys are expecting. Like, you're expecting everyone to throw in emojis into the chat. Eric's a champion. He's going to be the champion all the way up until this point, till the next championship recap. That no one can change that. But no one stands on their square, and that's why shit like this always happens. In 2018, when Pedro didn't show up on Orlando and he left 2 open slots, I think Todd Gurley was injured well into like Saturday night and he didn't update it into Sunday afternoon. I made that recap. Please don't make me post that recap. Please don't make me post that recap. I don't like the fact that what I'm saying is being characterized as bitching, and this is why. I make opinions on these recaps all day, every week, whether you guys listen to it or not. And for the better part of this season, I've been saying that Eric has the best team. Now, since I acknowledge the fact that Eric has the best team, why did I come to that conclusion? I've said it for weeks. I give Eric the edge over Paul because of Alvin Kamara. Now, of course, no one could have predicted that Alvin Kamara was going to score 52 points. What I had in mind if Pedro faced Eric was Alvin Kamara scores 32, like something that's an explosion, but you would never expect somebody to score into the 50 points. Eric and Pedro sound like Trump refuting Biden's tax plans or liberal tax plans by saying, I made all this money last year off his tax plan. I got away with it. I used the system. You see, his tax plan, it's invalid because he empowers me. They like to do that. Or Pedro specifically is like, well, if the trade was so bad, you would have vetoed it. No one vetoed it. Well, we don't veto things because of reasons just like this. Because when there's a discrepancy found, niggas get in their emotions and all of a sudden start to act like people can't have opinions in the league. That's why vetoes don't really take place, because everybody sort of just passively sits back, just like Paul is right now. Paul was the victim of this. And whether he doesn't care, I don't care. It's about standing on your square. I don't give a fuck that Paul doesn't care. This isn't like, well, Paul doesn't care, neither do I. No, I play in this league. Last year, when Paul traded Drew Brees over to Jay, and the whole year I said, well, Paul, you're gonna pay for that. You're gonna be sorry for that. And then Jay beat him in like the first round with Drew Brees got 44 points, or something like that. So that was a situation where Paul got reamed off of casually just giving Drew Brees. Funny that it's their New Orleans Saints as well. So that was a year where Paul gave someone to Jay, and then he ended up paying for it. And now, in the chip, a trade that was irresponsible, no matter how many ways you want to slice it, because Pedro can say that he was trying to figure things out with running backs that didn't. Pedro was trying to manufacture wins. He had a winning record. Alvin Kamara was on a bye. All of these reasons are why something has to be done to protect us from reckless trading. And do I think a reckless trade is a trade where you take one running back who's extremely high ranked and then you give somebody 3 players that have injury histories? I mean, Mixon obviously has a history with injuries. Mustard did what he did for like a couple of weeks or something like that. Pedro was just desperate. And this is my point. If you're desperate in a league that is played for no money, and you've already stated that money, he said something in the chat just now. Guys, this is 4:34 p.m. This is after we had a conversation on the chat. You see, Pedro stated something about like, oh, well, if it was, look, I'll find it. We come with nothing but receipts here at Team Bundy. That's all we do is come with receipts. We create receipts every week. I don't want to have to get into a situation because that's way too many calories and it's not that deep where I have to play recaps and tell you what my position was on things. I think that's kind of silly, and we all know where I fall. I tend to repeat myself a lot, and it's for this reason, because you have to repeat yourself when niggas are going to say that you're crazy in the 11th hour. And that's what you niggas are doing now. But let me find this text. Pedro said something like, okay, Pedro said at 2:41, he said, I like the money factor. What does that mean? That means that's the incentive for Pedro. It's not enough incentive for Pedro as it simply is for me and seems to be for Paul or Eric that bragging rights are what matters. This is part of the reason why Eric wants everyone to kind of like, hey, shut up, let me put on my sachet and let me put on my crown with my bouquet and walk around as Miss America. That's why Eric wants it, because he believes in the trash talk of this league. That's not enough incentive for Pedro. Pedro's stamped himself at 241 today and shown you in 2018 that he has a tendency to look away for whatever reason. Ed did what he did this year. He had 3 quarterbacks. We even went as far as to say that Ed was doing it to spite me. That's what Andy said. And I think there's probably some accuracy to that, because at one point Ed probably just got frustrated with the season. Everyone in the chat would tell him, Ed, you're being stupid. And I think Ed stubbornly just did it because he just said, fuck this shit. He just burned out. And Pedro is admitting that money changes things for him. When I asked this league, do not make me fucking post a recap. I asked this league collectively about 2-3 years ago. I said, what incentivizes you? What makes you care about this league? Because whenever I talk to you guys and have this kind of a tone, everybody goes passive. Everybody just moves about their day and just, okay, it didn't really happen, because he's collectively speaking to all of us. He's not really talking to me. I really don't care. This is fantasy. I don't really care. Oh my God, why are you upset? Because it's not about being upset. It's not about being upset. It's about staying consistent to what we have agreed upon. When Jay and Paul made that trade, it was known that I thought that trade was bullshit. Paul gave up players for Drew Brees. That trade wasn't over the top. That trade was more colored with the timing and with the sort of Alfredian sort of sprinkle that it had on it. Drew Brees just happened to go off for 1 week. Alvin Kamara is a top-ranked player given up by Pedro at a point where he was performing prior, had a bye. I've already spoken to you about trying to manufacture wins and trying to win every week. That's what Pedro was trying to do. This was the week 6 that I spoke to you about last week when I told you Eric faced Paul and Alvin Kamara was on a bye. That was the week Eric had gotten the trade for Alvin Kamara. Okay? Now, was that Pedro trying to spice things up by throwing Alvin Kamara in there? Maybe it wasn't, because he was on a bye. But my point is that if you say money would be a factor for me, then we can at least admit that we're not judging Pedro properly. We're projecting what we think Pedro should care about, and Pedro's pretty forthcoming with what makes him make logical risks. This isn't about taking risks. Any trade is a risk, of course, but that trade never felt like a risk. That trade felt like, here, take these players. I would have cared more if money was on the line, or if this was my only league. I probably wouldn't have made this trade, but you can take them. You see, it's just that subtlety that makes it a drama. It's just that subtlety that makes it a drama. Guys, my father has 12 or 13 children. Not that you guys know or care about that, but he's he nutted in several women during the course of his life, other than my mother. He just stayed with my mother in the end. But my father has about 12 or 13 children. Do you think that children are the same for someone who has 12 kids and somebody who has 2, somebody who has 3? You think they perceive children differently? Wouldn't you think? Wouldn't you think that a child is different if you have many children? If you have many leagues, then that changes the perception of what a league is. If you contrast a money league with a non-money league, then I would think that you become a different player in different environments. Rather than answer my question and say, well, yes, money incentivizes me, so yeah, let's play for this. Great, then we would avoid these problems. But since no one speaks up, then yes, we have to implement something that protects. Look, on the video, I said Pedro has to be punished. Maybe you don't feel like Pedro should be punished. I feel like personally he should. I feel like something should be done with Pedro's draft picks. Like something should be shifted, or he should be like given an auto pick or something. But because of 2018 and this, I want to be clear. That's unprecedented, so that's illogical on my end. That's me being too like, Eric's like, don't splash the pot. I'm not splashing any pots. What I am doing is I'm trying to protect the 2022 winner so this shit doesn't happen. So Janet Jackson's titty doesn't come out the night of the Super Bowl, and after the night of the Super Bowl, we try to pretend like that didn't happen and that shouldn't be a big deal. There's story here. We're sorry that these recaps are done, and that the narrative that's continued here is that was a bad trade. And then it escalated. And then after it escalates, I don't agree with how Eric is behaving. Eric should be like, listen, bitch, here's a gift, suck my dick. Fuck you, Paul, I'm out of here, I win, you guys figure this out amongst yourselves. No, Eric is diving in to the mosh pit. He's diving in there and he's got the chip. Walk away, man. Walk away. You've got the chip. You know who you are? Eric is the guy that you randomly find fucking your bitch. A man is just randomly fucking your girl, and it's an issue of her not being loyal to you, not the guy that fucked her. So, I think this happened to Martin one time when Gina went off into, to vacation, and Martin was hiding under the bed, and he thought that the Puerto Rican janitor was fucking Gina. And when the Puerto Rican manager was like, it's not what you think, my friend, Martin was just like, dude, it's not, you just being a man, bruh. You can go. You were just being a fantasy player, Eric. You can go. You can walk away. This has zero to do with you. Zero to do with you or taking legitimacy away from your fantasy championship. Again, receipts. I've said that you had the best team the whole league. If I think you had the best team and you had an explosive performance now, you think we're going to look back at this whole season and be like, well, this, Eric just depended on the fact that... Relax, guy. Relax. Take your fucking chip and shut the fuck up. Relax. If Pedro isn't going to be open about what makes him less reckless, because this is reckless. Whether you guys want to admit it or not, it's reckless because this happened. It happened already. And since it happened, yes, a precedent has to be set. This is a precedent. I would say that as an owner, Pedro set a precedent in 2018 and he should be penalized for these too. But again, that's just me. But yes, a precedent has been created, and a championship that probably would have been the best one that we've seen. Paul scored 90-something points. Who knows what Eric would have came up with had Alvin Kamara not exploded like that. Would have been very, very close and would have been entertaining to watch. If a precedent like this takes place, then moving forward, we have to say, okay, the next time that there's a suspect trade, I think that we should think about certain factors like the rankings of the players within. See, solutions are coming. So after this is posted, I don't want to hear anything about bitching, okay? Because if you feel anything in my tone, it's the fact that it's the fact that now all of a sudden we want to act like There's no documentation in this league. This is the one league where no one can say that there is no documentation. You have no right to say that there is no documentation after something happens. For Christ's sake, do what Andy does. Just say just say fuck you and put up a Thanos fucking meme. And walk away. You guys are bitching. You guys are bitching because I'm stating my opinion. You're yelling back at me. You're bitching. Okay? Paul using that verbiage is exactly why shit doesn't get done. It's exactly why things don't get done. See, the commish implemented the locking out the losing teams years ago because I could recall that it was an incident that I think I forgot who it involved. It might have even involved me, might have involved Eric, where we were eliminated, but somebody was making pickups during the championship week, and we said no, we can't have that. That's just kind of like screwing around with shit. So there's a lockout there. So there's a solution there because a precedent was created. This year, obviously, we have the veto things. As I said, it doesn't really get honored because when stuff happens that seems shady, someone always steps in and says, "Are you showing any form of human emotion or competitive spirit towards what was done in a league where we all face each other for one particular goal? Do you have a right to state your opinion?" I feel that I do, and that's why we put these things into play. But when it happens, everyone just goes like, "Oh my God, I don't want to argue. I just don't want to talk." What's wrong with you guys? What's wrong with you guys? Something simple can be implemented where if you make a trade with a top 5 player, the other team's rankings have to mirror something. I'm not saying that it has to be top 5 on the other side too. Maybe 2 top 10 players or something. Next year, if a healthy Christian McCaffrey is traded to somebody else's team for Emmanuel Sanders and David Johnson and Hakeem Mostert, like, you look at it and you're just like, well, look, putting David Johnson in that trade almost seems like it's benefiting the other owner. Pedro had no benefit in that trade. There was no benefit. This all comes to the point of he didn't care. If Pedro looks at this trade on a piece of paper, he would probably say, yeah, this wasn't a good trade. But he doesn't care because he cares about winning the money. But if you ask these niggas, what makes you care? They don't say anything. And then when they do fuck shit, they say, oh, what are you upset about? Don't hate on me. Don't veto a trade. You just mad. Which one is it? Which one is it? If we can't find a way to regulate Pedro personally controlling his incentives and now giving him no excuse to do reckless stuff like that. Because remember, Paul is the victim here. Whether Paul wants to, Paul doesn't have to say anything. Paul doesn't have to speak for my side. What Paul can stop doing is stop contributing to this notion like there is no reason whatsoever for someone coming at him. For someone coming at Eric or Paul. No one's coming at Eric. For somebody coming at Dro. All Paul has to do is clarify, listen, Eric, I'm not trying to delegitimize your win, or I'm not going to say a year from now. Like, when I said that Eric defeated Dro, that's more of sort of like Andy taking Jay's soul. Right? Andy literally beat him, but Andy beats Jay so many times, and Andy maybe doesn't get the inside joke, but it's my own inside joke, I guess. Jay doesn't even have to participate in this. It's that losing to Andy. Andy's such a terrible owner that losing to him is embarrassing. So when you lose to him repeatedly, your soul dies. Now, when I said that Dro lost to Eric, this isn't because it's framed from here on out. linking these two together in history. That was like an act of God, what Kamara did. But it just so happens that everything that we spoke about on this recap, everything, every week happened. And since it did, the feeling that you get when you look at that app and you look at the 52 points on one side and you look at the other side, I think it's good to avoid the color that this trade added to this week. You can't walk away from it. You can't walk away from it and say like, oh, what happened? Nothing happened. I just won. It's normal. Just leave it alone. No. It happened. And I like the fact that it happened because, of course, it adds controversy to the league. This has to be addressed. Now, as I said, I'm not necessarily saying that it has to be top 5 players from the other side, but maybe something with that. Maybe something with like, hey, if the commission looks at it and says, well, there's the top 3rd running back here, and on the other side you have a 20th ranked wide receiver, a 15th ranked running back, and a defense. Is that really legitimate? I mean, look, we have to be able to customize how we feel about things. If everyone disagrees with me, guess what? I don't give a fuck. And that's the point. If everyone in the league says, I think what you're saying doesn't hold any validity. Yes, we think it was shady. We think what happened was shady, but we don't think that it's fair to now stop people from taking risks or taking great risk where they see risk. Look, if you disagree with me, that's completely fine. This is not a dictatorship. I'm not trying to persuade. This is not the art of persuasion. This is standing on your square and having conviction. And I will stand on my square and say that, let me make this perfectly clear before I'm done. And again, the champion will get his flowers, and that's why this is being done separately, even technically before the week is even over, because the Monday night game still has to be played. I want to make myself perfectly clear. I personally feel, Bundy personally feels like Pedro should have some sort of, he should be penalized because of 2018 and this together, because it shows that Pedro doesn't really care for how he moves in the league. That makes it a chaotic environment for all of us, as you just saw. It makes it a chaotic environment when somebody just changes the timeline with ridiculous moves. This is like Hot Tub Time Machine, and you thought that Elway was going to throw the pass with 37 seconds, but they had done so much meddling up until that point that the squirrel trips the player, and all of a sudden you have to suck Craig Robinson's dick. That's what this is. Pedro's the guy that takes the risk. He's the bald guy, and he took liberties with Eric's dick, except in this case, they didn't know that was going to happen with Alvin Kamara, and Pedro in this alternate reality really did end up sucking Craig Robinson's dick. So because this happened, and that's my personal feeling. That's my personal feeling of him having, something with a draft pick. That's probably not going to happen. That's fine. That's completely fine. Maybe that's a bit too stern, but I care about the integrity that's maintained every week here. And I want the right team to win for the right reasons and in the right manner. Not a great team given a game shark and that shit just exploding the week of the championship. So my separate proposal is that for trades moving forward, maybe a top 5 system. Judging the rankings of the players, maybe that's something to be looked at. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying, folks. That's all. It's just my opinion, just like it is every week. Congratulations to Eric, the championship recap.